Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving into a new series today. This one comes at the request of Derica Seals, 1882. You put in a lot of good, it appears to be, series in here. So I plucked this from that list. And so the name of the trilogy is called the Surrender Trilogy, and it's by Lydia Michaels. And book one is called Falling In. We meet Scout Keats, and she lives in a shelter. She wants to move ahead in life. She's currently working at a local hotel called the Pratis, Pratas. I'm going to say Pratis. That's how I'm going to say it. Pratis Hotel. Her mother is a heroin addict, and even though her mother isn't much of a mother, her mother is still her weakness. So she goes to work. It's payday. She's a maid. And when she goes into the manager's office, her name's Tamara Jones, she gets told that HR needs her social security number in order, from her. And she goes, well, why would they need that? And she's like, well, for tax purposes, to process your check. We find out she can barely read and write. She has a friend from the shelter. His name is Parker. And he's the one who did the application for her for this job. He tries to also help her learn to read as well. And so she puts down a number, hopes she can get away with it, because the truth is she doesn't even know her social security number. She's never seen it. And all I could think is, oh my gosh, this poor girl. So she also gets told that she's going to the penthouses today. She, of course, is in awe of the penthouses. They're gorgeous. She's doing good, but she winds up knocking over some papers from a desk. She hears a booming voice coming in the penthouse, and he pours himself a drink, and then he sees her and yells at her like, what is she doing? But she was just kind of, scared, right? Silent. She didn't say anything. And he demanded to know, what are you doing? What is your name? And she was like, she couldn't talk. And so he's like, there's a note on the desk that says not to touch anything on my desk. But unfortunately, we know our girl can't read. And so she's telling him she's sorry. He asks her again, what's your name? And she said, Scout Keats. He wants to know her age. She says she's 27, but she's actually 22. He asked her, who does she report to? And she says, Tamara Jones. He then tells her she can go. She scurries out, and she thinks this is probably going to be her last day because he is bound to complain on her. Scout leaves. She's gotten her money. She had to count it a few times, but she's got $400. And the next part we read, it's pretty heartbreaking, okay? And I feel like past books we've read, mothers have had issues. We don't like them. Hell, the last book we didn't like her. Um, but this one is so sad because before she goes to the shelter, she goes to a place called the Tracks. It's by the mill. And this is where the drug addicts and different people basically live. It's run down. It's a horrible place. It's dangerous. And this is where her mother is. And so she grew up in this place. So this is her home. This is what she knows. And so she has this interaction with her mom, and it's so void because all the mom cared about was trying to get something so she could get a hit. And there's a guy, I want to say his name is Harry, but she tricks off with him whenever she needs some money so she can get a hit. And so because Scout knows she's going to do whatever it takes to get it, she just gives her money for it. But it's just so sad because the mom is having a hard, it takes her a minute to even recognize her. She's that far gone. She gives her mom some shampoos, different things from the hotel. Just super sad. So she leaves from there. She gets back to the shelter. Parker's waiting for her. He's like, "Did you go visit your mom?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You got to stop doing that at night. It's not safe there, you know?" And she said to him, "I grew up there, you know?" And so, anyway, they go and they get food. And there's this older guy there that just keeps leering at her. And it pisses Parker off. And she, of course, tells Parker, just, don't pay him any attention. Don't pay him any mind. She tells Parker about her day, what happened, and she thinks she's not going to have a job and all that type of stuff. They go to the school, which is, I guess, right next door to the church or joined or something, and take their shower, whole bath or whatever they do. And when she comes back, that guy is still leering at her. But of course, as she's sleeping, which I would have been scared to go to sleep, but when she falls asleep, who she thinks of is Mr. Fancy Man. She goes to work the next day, finds out that she's been permanently, or for this week, she's been put on Mr. Patris's place. Well, she hasn't connected together the two things. She doesn't know who the guy was that she freaking, knocked his papers over. She has no clue who this person is. And so she just knows she's going back up there with the rich folks, right? And so she's like, okay, she had to go and find the kitchen first because she had to get flowers and some other things before she headed up. The baby can't read. I mean, just, it was so horrible. She was looking for a C for kitchen. And we know kitchen starts with K, but she didn't know. And so she's looking, trying to find some type of clue. And luckily, she runs into Raphael, who is the chef. And he's able to help her. And he makes some comments about the fact that, oh, you're going to be permanently put up with the boss, because you're much more beautiful than Brigitte was. So then he had her taste some, it was like honeydew and bruschetta, uh, what is it? Prosciutto. She loved it. And then he told her where the flowers were, and so she goes, she knocks on the door, and the guy from yesterday opens up, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll come back." He tells her, "No, you can come, you can do it now." And so he said, he's about to eat, would she like to join him? And she's like, "I can't do that, I'm working." And he's like, "Yes, you can." So eventually he tells her, "I'm the one that pays your salary." And she's like, "Wait a minute, what's your name?" He says his name is Lucian Patris. And she was like, "Wait a minute. I can't do this. This is inappropriate. I gotta go." So he calls her by her government name, honey. And he says, "Evelyn, I asked you to stay." She goes, "How did you know my name?" He says, "I looked at your paperwork." So now she's spiraling, but she can't leave because he seems to not want her to go. So she told him, like, "I don't feel comfortable doing this," and, all this type of stuff. And she tells him, like, "No one calls me Evelyn." And he told her, well, Scout isn't a proper name for a beautiful woman. So then he calls down to her manager, Tamara, and tells her she's done for the day. Make sure you pay her for the full day, and hangs up the phone. And then he looks at her and he's like, "Now have a seat." So eventually she winds up sitting down. She eats, and she eats more than him. And he lets her know basically the deal, okay? He wants her to come with him to different events. And, she's kind of looking at him. He's telling her, I'll give you a, credit. You'll have a line of credit at all the high end boutiques. She'd have her own penthouse. But she's not dumb. She knows clearly he wants to fuck, right? That's the purpose of this shit. Okay? She knows that's the arrangement. But she just keeps thinking like, I can't do this, right? I can't do this, right? So she tries to leave and he winds up walking with her and basically trying just kind of lets her know if it's something, if there's something that, you would like to add to basically the agreement or whatever it is. Again, this is all him talking, nothing's in writing, but he's just kind of telling her about this offer to be his companion. And he offered to have his driver drop her off at home, and of course, she said no, can't do that. And she of course doesn't want this man to know she lives in a shelter, and she sure doesn't want him to know that she's got a mom that's hooked on drugs. So she knows that if she does accept this offer, he did tell her he'll give her until tomorrow to give a response. And so she kind of feels like, is this really something she can walk away from and not be and not get, unscathed? Because she's thinking winter's coming, it would be nice to have her own place. I mean, in general, it would be, but this could work out for her. She got this job because she's trying to save up money to get a place for her and her mom. So she's leaning towards a yes. She goes to see her mom. Her mom was butt naked, didn't recognize her, was saying stuff like, you should meet my daughter Evelyn, all this type of shit. So it's hard for her to see. So she goes to the church. I think it's called St. Christopher's or St. Christoph. And Parker's not waiting for her. And she also missed dinner, which is fine because she still stuffed from her lunch. And so when she came out to go to the school to take a shower is when she saw Parker. And of course he was like, where were you? I thought you were going to come, because he was supposed to meet up with her to go visit her mom, because he just felt better if he was there with her. If she's going to go, at least have him there to like protect her. And she said, I'm so sorry, I just totally forgot. She does not tell him about the offer from Lucian. She doesn't feel like being judged. Parker has this thing with rich people, and she's fascinated by them. And he seems to have a disdain for them. But he grew up apparently in a different life. See, she grew up homeless. This is all she knows. But he apparently had, and they became destitute. So I think he's going to have a different outlook on it. But for her, money does mean freedom, right? It means not being homeless, sleeping on the streets, sleeping in shelters, So she decided not to say anything to him about it, and I understand. I get it. I wouldn't. We also find out that her mom doesn't come to the shelter because she came when she was 30 years old and she got RAPED'd, so she never came back. And so she decided she's going to take this companionship thing because this could provide a place for her and her mom. Now, me personally, I don't see how the hell that's going to work. Your mama a full-blown addict, okay? I don't see how this can work. That woman is going to need a hit. She's going to pawn your shit. She's going to be bringing men there to fuck for a trick. I just don't see how this is going to work. It sounds very good in theory, but her mom is sick. Her mom has a real addiction. I forgot to mention when she was talking to Lucian the previous day, he had asked her like the different jobs, like what did you do before this? She said she was a waitress. Before that, she had worked at a auto shop, I think it was, and she had to quit there because either the son or the nephew of the owner kept propositioning her basically tell her she had to fuck them. That was the total pay in order to keep her job. So she, of course, wound up quitting that job. And while she was telling that story, she could see pure anger on Lucian's face. She goes into Tamara, and she's on a different schedule. Like she's on, well, we'll say a different route. And she kind of asks like, "Oh, Mr. Prattis, he didn't put in for housekeeping," and she says normally he only does like once a week, and he did 2 days this week, so that was kind of weird, you know. So she goes and does her rooms, and Tamara comes and finds her, and it's like, "Oh, Mr. Patras is demanding you now." So she gives her the key card. She goes up, knocks on the door. She comes in. He's on the phone, going off on somebody, and basically lets that person know it better be good news the next time they talk to him. So he tells her, "You're late." She says, "How am I late?" She says, "You didn't ask for a housekeeper." He says, "Well, after our discussion yesterday, I thought it was, you would have known." And she let him know, "I just can't come up here. I don't have a key for this place." He says, "Well, what happened to the key I gave you? The key I gave you?" "No, I'm sorry, the key that you had yesterday." She says, "We have to turn in our keys at the end of the night so they can be deactivated at the end of our shift." So he gives her a key out of his desk and says, "Well, this is my other key. Use it. Don't deactivate it." So he's ordered lunch. He wants an answer. She has some concessions. She wants to be able to keep her job. He says, "There's no reason. Why would you keep it?" And she says, "That's a done deal. Like, I have to keep working." He keeps trying to convince her, "But there's no use for you to do that. I'm giving you everything you need." And he's like, "You're gonna have a penthouse, all the allowances for everything. Like, what do you need?" And she's like, they come to a concession because he wants her to go down to part-time hours. So she says 20. He's like, "No." So eventually it comes down to 10. And she's thinking once he's done with her, she still is gonna need money, right? Like, he could decide tomorrow he don't want to do this no more in a week. She's still gonna have to work. And so she just kind of lets him know, "I need what I need, and I also need at least 2 afternoons a week to myself." He wants to know, "Well, what do you need this time for?" She says, "That's none of your business." He says, "Well, as long as it doesn't impede on when I need you, then fine." He brings up sex. She's a little weirded out. Um, she might be a virgin the way she was acting. Not quite sure yet, but I don't know. She's being a little different when it comes to this. So I'm thinking she's never done it. He, of course, is like, "Well, you knew that was going to be a part of it. And she just kind of had, he asked her if she had, like a physical. So he was letting her know, like, he's going to get a doctor so a physical can be done. And we find out this girl can only remember going to the doctor when she was like maybe 10 or 11. She was in the hospital because her mother left her at the hospital because she had pneumonia. Her mother went on a 5-day bender, came back and kidnapped her because CPS had gotten involved because child had been abandoned. So there's a fear associated with hospitals. And I'm just sitting there like, this mama, like, can we even call her that? Good grief. I mean, mm-mm. So her mom's been an addict her whole life. This didn't just start. Literally, this seems to appear to have been her whole life. It just makes it even sadder. So she agrees to see the doctor, and she thinks to herself, like, would be good just to make sure she doesn't have anything, everything's okay with her. He asked her if she was on birth control. She said no. He's like, "Well, we're going to have to fix that. And so he told her, I guess, the penthouse, the one that was going to be hers, and she's thinking she's got to get back to St. Christopher's and tell Parker because she never told him about the offer. So if she doesn't show up, he's gonna freak. But you got to remember, they don't have any phones. So she's afraid he's going to be worried about her. This is all moving very quickly. She is just trying to hold on for dear life. So Lucian calls up his doctor, his friend. Her name's Vivian Sheffield, and he wanted to just do it right then in front of him, the physical, and she was kind of like not feeling too okay with that. Scout, and she was like, can we go in the room, and she's like, absolutely, we can go, he can wait. And so they go in the spare room, and he was pissy about it because he's like, I'm gonna get the results anyway, so why couldn't it just be done in front of me? He's just a little prick. But anyway, she's looking at this woman's so sophisticated and poised, and she's wishing like, why can't I be like that? So long story short, she tells her that she's a little concerned because she doesn't know how much she weighs, and she looks underweight. And when she asked her when was the last physical she had, she said, I've never had one. Told her about the incident at the hospital, and that was it. And when she does the examination, she realized she's a virgin, and she says, are you being forced into this? She says, no, I'm not being forced into anything. And Vivian's like, you do realize he intends to have a sexual relationship with you. Does he know you're a virgin? She says no, and why should he? It's none of his business. And so after saying that, and she made a comment about food, when Vivian asked her, well, when was your last meal? And she said, oh, yesterday. And she's like, yesterday? She's like, yeah. She's like, but I eat when I get hungry. And it's, and that's when I can feed myself. So I think the doctor is realizing that she's possibly homeless. She doesn't say it, but I think the doctor's picking up on what the hell really going on. So the doctor pretty much lets her know, like, I do want to see you. Make sure you start eating. We need to put some weight on you. And, I'll leave your results, but, I do want to see you again in a couple weeks. So she was hoping after the doctor leaves that she'd go to sleep. But oh no, Lucian wants to go shopping. She's like, shit. So they're getting ready to go. He pulled out the pins in her hair because she's got really long black hair. Eyes that are like really light blue, almost white. They called her witch eyes. That's what she heard people say to her when she was younger. He kisses her, and she apparently has never kissed. And she didn't really know what to do at first, but then of course she got the hang of it. All of these sensations are going on. It's freaking her out. And now she's seen sex before, because we gotta remember, her mama she'll fuck in front of her, to get her fixed. So it's not like it's something she hasn't seen before, but she's never experienced it. So she winds up stopping, pulls away from him, and he kind of told her, started touching on her, and he's like, this isn't gonna work if you're gonna pull away from me every time I touch you, especially not in public. You have to get used to me touching you. And she's like, you just caught me off guard. And so he felt, when he like was touching her, he felt that like probably didn't know what it was, because she's got that money belt on. That's all her money in the world. That's all her money in the world. In the backpack that she has, that bag, that's all her things in the world. That's it. It's just so sad. But anyway, she told him she had to go downstairs and get her bag from her locker. He's like, I can send someone to get it. She said, no, I want to get it, because again, that's everything she has. He's like, fine, but meet me in 10 minutes out front. And he calls for the driver, Dugan. So when she gets out front, she sees all these taxis, limousines. She has no idea which one he's in. So then this guy comes up to her, and she's prepared to go off, but the guy says, "Miss Keats," and he says, "This way." And so she sees the limo. He looked at the ratty bag when she got in, and he said something to her about it, but she didn't say anything to him. And so she said to him about being really tired. She apologized for early. She said, "I've been up since 3 a.m." He's like, "Why didn't you tell me? If you need more sleep, you tell me, you know?" And so they go to the boutique. The woman, of course, flirting with Lucian. He's not paying attention. She tries on some things. They hold up a bunch of stuff for him to say yeah or nay to. And then she asked to be by herself to undress herself and things like that. And it was the first time she'd seen herself naked in a really long time. She thinks she looks okay. But she's starting to see her mother, and that freaks her out. So Lucian comes knock on the door. He's like, "What's taking you so long?" She's like, "I need a minute." She took too long. He came in. And he was just like um staring at her. He saw her in this one outfit. He's like, "I want this in every color on you," because she thought it was too short. And she's like, "I can't wear this until spring." And he's like, "I don't care. I want you to have it. And try on the next thing, and it just keeps going. And she kind of thinks to herself, when has this man ever not gotten his way? She gets to the car, and she had left her old stuff, her old clothes. And he's like, "Oh, they'll just toss it away." And she's like, "No." So she runs in, scares the life out of the clerk, and gets her stuff. And they leave from there. They get back to his place, and she's got like these pointy shoes on. They're not comfortable. But she does have to admit, she does look nice. They're just not comfortable. So she takes her shoes off as soon as they get into the suite. He wants to play chess, and he asked her what she wanted for dinner. Like, what would you request? Is how he said it, though. And so she thought he was talking about chess. And so she said, "Just talk slowly. And when I ask you to repeat, don't get upset with me." And he's like, "No, I was asking what you wanted. Food. What's your favorite thing?" She says, "I don't have one." He says, "Well, what do you like?" She still was like, "Well, there's a thing I tasted the other day, the prosciutto with the cantaloupe." And he's like, "I know what that is." So he ordered that amongst some other things. So then he tells her they're going to play strip chess, which I think is unfair because she has never played this before. She's already at a disadvantage. You have to tell her the rules, and then she's gonna play her first game, and this is what we doing. I don't like that. I didn't think that was really fair, cause that's your way. You might as well just fucking tell her to strip. Why not just say that? Because chess is a game. You don't just pick that up in one session. You know what I mean? That is a game of real skill. So it's like, I don't know. That just kind of bothered me a little bit that he threw that to her that fast. So he explains the game to her again. I didn't think it was enough. But anyway, she winds up being damn near naked. Afterwards, he takes her to her suite, and it's lined up with like different flowers, lilies being one of them. She really likes those. And he's like, okay, now he kind of knows that's what she likes. And then he kind of went back to being formal with her. I think he was calling her Miss Keats and shit. And he tells her like he has an appointment, a lot of appointments between tomorrow, and she's got an appointment at 10, and he wants her to be ready by 6 o'clock for their evening out. So she says okay. So she's just kind of like, she's gonna go see Parker early in the morning, let him know not to worry about her, and she should be able to do that since her appointment is at 10. And I'm just thinking this is going to be very interesting. Very interesting. Parker's reaction. So next morning she gets up, wakes up at about 5, which is her normal time. Gets up, runs herself a bath, used the bath oils and everything. It was the cleanest she'd ever felt in her life. Afterwards, she tried to shave. She winds up nicking herself a few times on her leg. And she left from there. What did she do? She winds up taking a shower afterwards and she had nicked herself so bad. So she couldn't go see Parker with the new clothes on. She had to put on like some her regular clothes. And she winds up buying him a muffin because she kind of felt like, she's been having these nice meals and she wanted to do something for Parker. So she gets there, gives him the muffin. He's upset because, he was terrified. She'd been out all night. He didn't know where she was. And so he was like, he thought she had stayed over and, at the mill by the tracks. And she's like, no, I didn't. She didn't go into full detail. She didn't say I'm finna be this guy's mistress or companion. We'll say it that way. To get my money up. She didn't say that. She just told him she's taking on a new position. He was asking if he could get put on at the hotel. And she said, well, you can come and visit, but not right now. I can't get you a job. Like, not right now. Um, she's like, I'm not going to be around for the next few weeks. Check on my mom for me every now and then. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. No problem. And that's kind of, I think it was kind of mean, to tell you the truth, for her to ask him to be going over there so much, because we come to find out his mom apparently died over there. So I'm like, this is just. But I guess if you so full of trauma, how can you even see anybody else's? I'm just being honest. But I just kind of was like, shit, because she knows he doesn't like to go over there, but she's still gonna ask this of him. Uh, I don't know. I'm thinking he's sweet on her. Because I can't really see him doing this type of shit unless he's sweet on this girl. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And maybe he does just see her as a friend. But I think he really likes her on another level. Oh, also, before she left, he told her the guy that had been leering at her, how about that night he had attacked a woman named Deborah in the bathroom, and thankfully some guys heard and they intervened, so he didn't get to, RAPE her. But she ran off after the incident, and thankfully the guy was arrested, but apparently the charges don't always stick with guys, and if she's gone, there's no witnesses. It's just, it's sad. And she's thinking like, this is a real hard time for homeless people because they can die from hypothermia. This is from December to March is the coldest of the year. And so it's just so sad. So she gets back to the hotel. She's going to go through the service entrance because she's not going to go through the front of this high-end hotel looking like a bum, which is what she looks like. And someone grabs her arm, and it's fucking Lucian. He's like, what are you doing, and why are you dressed like you're homeless? And so she snaps. She yanked herself from him, and she's like, you are not my father. I have taken care of myself all my life. I don't need a dad. And she just kind of went off on him, and she didn't tell him she was homeless. But it's like, again, if you kind of listen to what she says, it almost like she's kind of telling you. But anyway, after that, he told her, you have an appointment in 10 minutes. I expect to see you at 6 p.m. tonight for dinner. And so later on, and he also told her, later on, we're going to have a discussion about where you went this morning. And so after he leaves, she goes in for her appointment. She gets, hair done, makeup, facials, waxing, massage, everything. A little of her hair was cut off, not a lot, just, her dead ends. And even though it was a little bit, it still made her feel like she was losing a part of herself. She goes upstairs. It's about 2 hours left. Her phone's blinking and on, in the room, and she's like, picks up the phone and asks, what does this mean? Because sometimes you just don't have to hit anything; you just hit zero. And she seemed to know numbers a little bit better. I think she knows her numbers, but words, So the front desk tells her that means you've got a message. And so she hits it. It's a message from Dr. Vivian Sheffield letting her know her tests are clean, she's good, but she still wants to see her in a couple weeks. And she takes down her number so she can call her back when she's, ready for another appointment. She gets her dress on, but she can't zip it all the way up. She goes to and knocks on his door because she forgot her key. He zips up her dress. He, of course, is in awe of her. He's looking at her like she just looks so amazing. He bought her a white fur coat. She was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I've never been given something so nice. And he was just like, oh, it's nothing. Which kind of hurt her because it's like this gift meant so much and it meant nothing to him. They go to the event. It's at the Museum of Natural Art. And no one really talks to her too much. They really just talk to him. One lady winds up talking to her, who's the wife of the person that organized this event, and she was saying how they charge $5,000 a plate. It's not really doing any real help, that type of thing. And so then the woman, she was kind of funny, so she laughed with her. They leave. They get in the limo. She apologizes to him for how she talked to him that morning. He said, "Let's just forget about it." And he says, "Where were you? Where did you go?" And she says, "It's not important." He says, "Well, you were with the man, so I want to know." He was like, "I expect for this to be a monogamous situation. And so she says, "How did you know I was with the man?" "You followed me?" He had someone followed her. That freaked her out, pisses her off. He says, "What were you doing in the poorest parts of town?" And again, he's got no idea. This is where she's from. He told her she can never go there again and all this type of stuff. He spoke with the doctor, and he said, "Why did Vivian tell me to be careful with you, to take it slow?" She's like, "I don't know why she said that." He's like, "Yes, you do. Why did she say it to me?" She says, "I don't know. I don't know why she said it. I can handle whatever you throw at me." He winds up sending her upstairs, and he says he's going to go out. And so she goes upstairs. She's pissed off. She's crying. She's got all these emotions flowing through her. And she has a picture of her and her mom someone drew, and it's falling apart. But her thing is she doesn't care about people. I'm say it right. She doesn't like to care about people because once she cares, that's it. It's life. It doesn't go anywhere. And so she's she was even skeptical about letting Parker into her life. And she feels kind of bad now because she's kind of abandoned him. But at the same time, she's trying to do something to get herself in a better position. Poor thing. Next morning, she's awoken by this loud sound. She thought it was an alarm, but it was just the phone ringing. It was Lucian. He told her, 30 minutes, dress casual, meet me downstairs. So she puts on some fitted jeans, a sweater, some boots, doesn't finish drying her hair, gets to the car. They stop by his office, and then they head outside of the city, which freaks her out because she has never been outside of the city of Folsom. He kind of lets her know that tonight is going to be the start of their intimate part of their relationship. He's like, there's no point in putting it off. She said she agreed. They snuggled up a little bit in the back. They get to this house. Well, it's a mansion. It's huge. But when she sees it, it's family, right? That's where her mind goes. She says, "Are you married?" And he says, "No." Because she's like, "Do you have family?" He says, "Yes, I have two sisters, but I'm not married." And she's like, "Okay." So then she goes. How this mansion is as big as this hotel. So they go in. The housekeeper lets them know his guests are already there in another room. And eventually they meet up with him. So he's got friends. I think that they sound like they're his business partners. So there's Slade and there's Jamie. Jamie's nice. Slade looks at her with suspicion, like he knows her from somewhere. Jamie's the fun guy, right? So they're looking for this paper. They can't find it. Lucian left to go look somewhere else. Slade comes over and sees that the paper's by her. But remember, she can't read, but no one knows this. So Slade had an attitude. Jamie was like, she found it for us, you know. So Slade left, and then Lucian came back, and it was just her, Lucian, and Jamie. So Lucian told her to sit on his lap. She did it. And I guess Lucian is kind of big exhibitionist, kind of likes for people to watch. And is it voyeur? I forget. But anyway, there's another term for that, but we're just gonna call it an exhibitionist. So anyway, Jamie likes to watch. So he doesn't lift up her sweater so he can see her breasts. He can't see anything. Nothing's exposed. But he does go in her pants and makes her come. And she had like this really loud orgasm, and when she opened her eyes, there was no sweet Jamie looking at her. There was that Lucian look on his face, which is one of ready to pounce. And so I said, well, damn, this how we starting off. But again, he doesn't know she's a virgin. You know, this is a business arrangement. So him treating you like an object makes sense because that's what it is. This is very transactional, you know? So Jamie leaves out, and now it's just her and Lucian in the room. He tells her he's got to go handle a few more things, and then they have a little talk because she asks him, like, why did you do that? You know? And he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, I should have made sure you were ready for that level. So eventually they leave, they come back. On their way back, though, from wherever they were, it never says the city. Like, it does say Folsom, but I couldn't, like, where's Folsom? But anyway, so I just equated to Folsom is like a small big city, and then you have outside of that. That's how I equate it. Um, on the way back, they play strip chess. She got a couple of articles of clothing off of him, which made me happy because that means she's learning a lot. She picks up pretty quickly, and he didn't just get to just make her strip. So I was happy about that. Um, when she puts his hand between her legs, he's thinking that she wants him to eat her pussy. So he goes down between her legs and licks, and she freaks out. She's like, "Stop!" And he's like, "You don't say no to me," and all this type of shit. He's like, "Sexually, you're supposed to let me be the one in control." So he's a dominant, we see. She winds up going upstairs. She's packing her shit because she's like, oh no. So he comes to her while she's packing. He's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm leaving. He's like, no, you're not. You can't. You know? So they have this whole discussion, and he tells her he doesn't. How does he say it? Basically, he lets her know someone that he cared in the past, if they would have just listened to him, they would still be here today. And so that's why he needs to protect and be in control and all this type of stuff. Okay? So her thing is she can't trust any and everybody. He feels like she's a submissive. She doesn't think she's that. And so they get to a thing of choosing a word for a safe word, and she chooses checkmate. But it's not just during sex. If she ever says checkmate, that means she's done with this. Like, she can't do this at all. He helps her with bringing her some of her stuff to his suite, and they have a little back and forth about her working. She kept saying she needed money. He was like, I can give you whatever you need, and if you need extra money, I can give that to you as well. She told him she can go and work somewhere else, but he, of course, doesn't want that. So then she took a shower, and when she came out, he had the silk gown for her to put on. And he winds up picking her up and they get down to business. So at first he starts fingering her while kissing her. And then he was like, I have to be inside you now. So he opens up a condom. And then, of course, he has a hard time working his way in. At first, it hurt a lot. And she was about to say checkmate. But then it got better. And he was able to like rub on her clit while he fucked her. And she was able to come. So he went and threw the condom away. And then when he sat on the edge of the bed, he was like, are you hurt? And she says, why? And it's because there's a blood stain on the sheets. So he's pissed. And he says, you're a fucking virgin? How old are you? I know you're not 27 because your paperwork shows you're 22. Is that a lie too? And she says, I am 22. He yells, when is your birthday? And she says, I don't know the exact date. I just know I was born in the winter 22 years ago. So then he tells her she can stay in the guest room. He'll sleep on the couch. She stripped the sheets off, washed them in the tub, and decided tomorrow she's leaving. She tried to sneak out the next morning. He caught her, and he was like, you sneaking out? And she was like, I'm going to do my shift. He told her he would have lunch ready after her shift. She did her shift, grabbed her bag, left the building. She hadn't gotten too far when she heard Dugan yell out her name, and she took off running. She ducked behind an alley, lost Dugan. She went to her mom, and again, painful to read because her mom had just gotten high and was still trying to get another hit. She cleaned her mom the best she could. She left. She then went to the shelter. There were a lot of cars outside, which means the people that are keeping the place open, the probably rich folks, they're coming out of the meeting, and one of them was Slade, Lucian's friend. So, freaking Parker, he's yelling, Scout, Scout, and he's asking where she's been, and she lets him know she was back for good, and they went inside and got something to eat. She wakes up to commotion. The George guy who kind of runs the shelter is saying to someone, you can't just go storming in there X, Y, and Z. So she knows it's fucking Lucian. So she tries to sneak out. He sees her. Lucian, Parker yells out, Scout, run! Because Lucian had said her name Evelyn. And so she also saw Slade and Dugan waiting as well. So she was trying to get out, but it was like to no avail. Parker winds up jumping up in Lucian's face, telling him leave her alone, and punched him. It's a whole mess, all this commotion going on. She did not want this to happen, and Lucian tells her, you've got 30 seconds. So Parker's trying to talk her out of going, and she lets him know, he's my friend, it'll be okay. And she said, would you please? And he says, I know, go and check on Pearl. And so she decides she doesn't know why he's here. She feels like he's upset because she left without saying goodbye. That's why he did all this. So she lets Parker know, I'll talk to him. And she's like, and then I'll see you in a couple of days. So they get back to the hotel in the suite, and he tells her to strip. He starts running the water. She's like, why, what are you doing? And she's, like, she tells him, I'm sorry I didn't tell you that I was homeless. Because he kept saying, why were you there? Why were you there? And she says, it's where I live. I didn't want you to know all those things about me, and I'm sorry for that. She told him, I'll leave now. He's like, would you please just stop running? And he explained to her basically, like, he likes the challenge of her. He also likes the fact that she doesn't try and take anything from him. He finds more pleasure. I'm sorry, she finds more pleasures in Lily's than the $10,000 worth of clothes that he bought. And she doesn't try and use them. And he's used to people using him, trying to see what they can get at every angle. And he said, for you, money is a means to an end, and he doesn't want her to leave. So she agrees to stay. He runs the bath. He gets in with her. And it does feel right to her. She says, she doesn't have many friends. He says, I don't either. She says, well, what did she say? or he said, like, for now we have each other. And she's thankful for that, you know. But she knows there's going to be an expiration date because she doesn't believe in her forever. The next morning, she gets up, she goes to work. He told her he had some meetings, but other than that, he would, be available. So she goes, does her shift. It's really light. And so she notices the load seems heavier for the other maids. And so she goes to Tamara, and Tamara basically says, listen, he's the boss of my boss of my boss, you know? And so she just kind of lets her know she's going to talk to him. Um, Scout, Evelyn does, you know? So she's starving. She hasn't eaten anything. And she goes up to the suite, and he's like, I need to talk to you about the workload. And she said, like, you can't do that anymore. Like, less work means less tips. And he said, oh, I didn't know that, but it doesn't matter anyway because you got a promotion. He's going to put her on the receptionist desk. She's like, I can't do that. He's like, they'll teach you. She says, no, I don't know how to work a computer. She still didn't tell him about the reading part. She left that out. Then she asked him how his brunch went, and he said it was all right. She admitted that she was hungry, and he was like, when was the last time you ate? And she said, I haven't eaten anything since the shelter. He was like, that was 20 hours ago. He's like, I told you have a credit for everything. If you need something, you can get it, you know? So now all of her stuff is moved into the guest room in his place. And she's like, I don't have any regular clothes. It's just fancy stuff that got for me. So he gave her one of his shirts and gave her some socks to put on. And while he's doing his stuff, she kind of curled up and wound up drifting to sleep. And they honestly just seem to take comfort in one another. It's sweet to read. She wakes up, Lucian's on the phone, and she hears him say, take him to the restaurant, we'll be down shortly. So he tells her, dress casually. He winds up dressing up in this suit. They go downstairs. It's Parker. He was like, he just wanted to make sure she was okay, all this type of stuff. So then Lucian winds up ordering steaks for all of them, but of course Parker's not going to eat it, and it's just a mess. So he storms out, and he gives his little spiel to her, saying like, I'm sorry, the spiel was given to good old Lucian, and saying that she can't be bought and all this type of shit. And then he leaves out, and what was pissing her off is that they were talking back and forth and no one was talking to her. So everyone has these thoughts about what she should be, who she is, and no one's talking to her. So she winds up going after Parker, but because she said to Lucian, that's my only friend, So she goes after Parker, but he's being judgy and telling her, money isn't everything. You don't give yourself to him, all this type of shit. And it pisses her off because she said to him, I've been homeless for 22 years. I don't plan on going another 20 being in that same predicament. I don't want to end up like another Jane Doe. And Parker keeps saying he's never going to love you. And she said, I don't want him to. And so she winds up leaving. Lucian came out and was like, your meal's in the limo, talking to Parker. They'll take you back to the shelter. And she was pissed off at him. I get it. He was being judgy. You see what her plight is in life. And yet you have that attitude. Now, I'm going to tell you what pisses me off a little bit more. Because I want to know why he hasn't helped her more learn to read. Like, all this time you've been able to spend with her, and it's just every now and then he'll take her to the library and they can, he'll help her a little bit. But it's like, she should know a little bit more. They've been friends apparently for years. So I'm just kind of curious. she's eager to learn. It's not like she doesn't want to learn to do it. But she had made the statement kind of like it was based on when he had time. Bitch, you ain't doing nothing, clearly. So, I don't know. That kind of rubs me the wrong way with him as well. Because it's also him trying to make sure she understands your place is not to be there. You know, it's wild because people will think like, oh, you deserve better, but then there's a cap on that shit. You know, like you deserve better, but you shouldn't necessarily be with somebody like that. Well, what the fuck? Are you better? You know, what are you? You can't offer anything. You can't make her life easier. You know, so I don't know. Parker, I don't like him right now. I don't. He ordered their food. They ate in silence, and she said, "Let's play chess." So they're playing chess, but they're not doing the strip chess. But then she starts playing strip chess, and he's like, "We don't have to do that." She's like, "Why? Have the rules changed?" So then he starts pushing her and gets her to the point to where she would have to say checkmate in the game, but she gets upset because it's like, if you want her to leave, just say that, right? So she storms out and she says to him, like, you were trying to make me say checkmate, you know? Which again is her word for being out of the situation completely. It pissed her off because it's like, you came down there, you hunted her down just to throw her away again. That's fucked up. So he came in the room, he apologizes to her. She, of course, was like, if you want me to leave, just say that. He says, I don't want that. I want you to be here because you want to be here. I don't want you to be here because you need me for something. And she explained to him, do I need money? Yes, I do. But something's changed and I want to be here, you know? She's like, things are different. And yes, she needs money to buy stuff. Like, that's just reality, you know? And so she lets him know, I'm perfectly happy to go with you somewhere in a jeans and t-shirt, but that would embarrass you. And he's like, we can do free things if that'll make you feel better. He tells her, I just like your company. So then after, they have their little kiss. Next day, Lucian goes to work and she spends the day basically fooling around. That afternoon. That evening, Slade knocks on the door and he says Lucian told him to wait for him here. He's a prick to her. He lets it be known that he does not like her, because she flat out asked him, do you not like me? And he answered, no, I don't. And so they wind up having to go to dinner with him. He tried to play her saying something about escargot, knowing the girl didn't know anything about that shit. And Lucian was like, it's snails. And so she had a little retort for him. It was cute. And she just basically let him know it's wild. Like, being at the shelter, we see people eating bugs. It's crazy, yet rich people do it to make it seem like they're sophisticated. So he didn't order the escargot, and someone else had ordered it, and he's looking all longing at the dish. But it was like, good. She got him back. So what happened? I think that they must have worked through the night. She wakes up and she eats some breakfast, and Slade's there, and he puts the paper in front of her and it shows Lucian with a beautiful woman. And he goes, she looks amazing, doesn't she? He's crazy about her. She storms out. Come to find out, this is Isadora. That's fucking Lucian's sister. And so Slade leaves, and it's just insane. It's like, I don't know. I just, Slade, he's pissing me off because he's being a bitch. But then I wonder, if you have someone who has nothing, it very much looks like they could be taking your friend for taking them for their money. I get that. But then it's like, but he seems to want to spend the money. So then that's him. That's his choice. Why do you feel the need to try and make this person feel bad? Like, that's crazy. So Slade's a dick, because it's just like he really trying to make sure she never forgets. You're a nobody. He wants her to know that's how she's viewed in the world. You're a nobody. Don't forget that, you know? And that's just fucked up.